What is up, guys? Ken, also known as Wiltshire here, and welcome to my brand new series on my YouTube channel. So this is called Build Log, and Build Log is basically me vlogging all the changes I'm making to my computers and taking you guys along for the ride. Now, Build Log won't just have one piece of hardware that I'll be swapping out or changing, it'll have multiple. So in today's video, we have a PSU Shroud, a liquid cooler for an RX Vega 64, we have a vertical GPU mount to install, we have liquid metal to go on the CPU, we have a few odds and ends of hardware, and we're going to do a bit of cable managing for this computer because it's awful. But before we get into that, I want to tell you guys about the sponsor for today's video. Today's sponsor is Skillshare. Now, Skillshare is an online learning platform that has more than 25,000 classes that you can choose from, such as animation, graphic design, and video editing. That's basically what I use it for. I personally found Skillshare extremely useful for learning how to do things such as the lower third that I made for this video. I actually made that by watching a series by Nikolai Zhao, and in the video series is called How to Make Cool Animated Lower Thirds. And I found it super useful. I've never known how to actually animate in After Effects until now. So join more than 7 million creators learning with Skillshare. Skillshare is extremely affordable. It's $10 for an annual subscription, which is super cheap. The first 500 people that use the link in the description below will get a free premium account to Skillshare for 2 months. So make sure you guys click that if you're interested in learning how to maybe hone your craft or learn something new. So with that said, guys, let's get on to Build Log. Okay, so this is the streaming PC, and this is all the hardware that we'll be installing today. So this streaming PC here is on a Corsair 350D, and actually I'm going to open up the side panel here. There we go. Okay, now that we have the side panel off, I should have done that before. I don't know why I didn't do that before, but that's okay. We'll roll with it. Inside the computer here, let me just up the brightness here a little bit so you can see inside. We have a Corsair H100i Pro with a 4790K underneath. Now I've de-lidded that and put thermal paste underneath, and it's still having thermal issues. There was something wrong with the TIM on the inside of the IHS, so I just put thermal paste in there to see if it would work, and it solved most of the problems. However, it's still running a little too hot, so that's where the liquid metal comes in today. But we have an RX Vega 64. I got that card for $300 brand new off a Newegg because of a pricing error. They gave it to me anyway, so sweet. That was an awesome deal. $300 for a Vega 64 is a great deal. We also have a 4K AverMedia capture card right here. 650 watt power supply, just a terabyte hard drive. It's 5400, nothing special really. There's also M.2 and everything in it, but that's the computer with 16 gigs of RAM. I forgot to mention the 16 gigs of RAM. You might have seen the tutorial where I took the RAM and then I made it RGB, custom RGB. If you don't know what I'm talking about, then I'll leave a description for this video for these guys right here in the description below. So the hardware we'll be installing today is a PSU Shroud, which will cover the bottom part of the case here, right along here. I'm not such a big fan of how all these cables are kind of just bunched there. I do not enjoy that at all when looking at it, because the window for the side panel actually extends all the way down to the bottom of the case and you can see everything, and I don't like it. So this is where the PSU Shroud comes into play. So it is 3D cut matte finish plastic. It's also got a rubber grommet hole there for the power supply cables to run through. So we're going to place that down and off to the side. Now we'll be using Thermal Grizzly Conductonut as the liquid metal for today's 4790K. Again, I've already de-lidded it previously, so we can just apply it right away. I've actually never applied liquid metal to a CPU before, so this ought to be very interesting. So we also have red anodized screws. I'm going to put red anodized screws on the inside because my theme is red and black on that computer right there, as you can see. So I wanted to, keep the theme going with some red screws for the PCI expansion stuff right about there and there, those screws in there, if you can see them. So we'll be keeping the theme going with that. We also have the Caselin vertical mount GPU kit. I kind of figured that it would be kind of cool to do a vertical GPU mount in this case. I think I got enough room. Hopefully we do. We're going to find out because it apparently adds about 20 centimeters, and hopefully we have a big enough gap in the front there for the vertical GPU mount to fit. That is also why I got the shelf here, is because the vertical GPU mount needs kind of a shelf to sit on top of here. And without it, we wouldn't be able to do a vertical GPU mount. It would kind of maybe sit on top of the power supply, and I don't really like the idea of that. We also have the AlphaCool ISWolf GPX Pro cooler for the RX Vega 64. And I've actually never taken apart a graphics card either, so that ought to be a fun experience. The RX Vega 64 is a very hot card, and it does need to be undervolted to run properly, so it doesn't really thermal throttle. So that's why we got this sucker here. This is the only one I could find. I got like the last one I could find in North America. They're made in Germany, so I'd import it. And we just have a few odds and ends of hardware. So I have the hardware kit for the Corsair H100i Pro. Ironically, when I bought the new one, it came with 5 AMD mounting screws and 3 Intel screws, and it didn't come with the micro USB cable that I need in order to plug the pump into the motherboard's USB 2.0 header. So I wasn't able to change the LED or fan speed or anything on the pump without that. So I'm going to have to add that back in because it was missing. I honestly think someone took the box maybe, and they probably broke a screw or something like that. Went to the store, bought it, and then just said, "Oh, I bought the wrong one," and they put it back on the shelf. And I was the unlucky guy that got, screwed over. So that's a rundown of all the hardware. So we're going to get right into probably doing the GPU, or the PSU shelf first, and then we'll maybe move on to the vertical mount and see if that fits before we liquid cool the graphics card, and then we'll finish off probably with the liquid metal on the CPU. So let's get right into it. Okay, so I've gone ahead and removed the RX Vega 64 and my 4K capture card from the computer just to save a bit of time in the video. I don't think I'll be able to get the PSU Shroud inside the computer with those cards in. I definitely don't think I will be, actually, now when I'm looking at it. So what I'm first going to do is I'm going to run the PSU power cables through the rubber grommet here, just so I don't have to kind of fish for the cables later once I have the shelf in, because it looks like it'd be difficult to find the cables once the shelf itself is in. So we're going to just push the cables through that rubber grommet there. There we go. And this is where the fun begins, because this looks like a very tight-fitting PSU shelf. So we're going to, looks like, have a lot of fun putting this in the computer. So it looks like the shelf is in. That was actually fairly easy. That was a lot easier than I thought it was going to be, because this looks like a really tight fit here, and it really is. I had to go in a kind of an angle to make it fit. So what we're going to do next is we're going to unbox the vertical GPU mount that we have here from Caselin. It's weird, they call it the Caselin GPU mount, but it's made by Easy DIY Fab, the same guys that made the RGB heat spreaders for the RAM. So after unboxing the vertical GPU mount and trying a dry fit run of it, unfortunately, I'm not going to have enough room here. This looks like it's covering the power port on the Vega 64, which that's not good, because I need these 2 hard drives here for work, and I cannot remove them. Now, with the shelf installed, I've taken the shelf out, as you can see here. With the shelf installed, the graphics card sits too high, and it ends up hitting this kind of metal join here on the case. So I would either have to cram this cable into the corner and potentially break it by bending it this way, which I'm not too keen on doing, or I have to cut the height of the shelf in order to fit the vertical GPU mount in this case. Now, if I had a Corsair 450D instead of a 350D, I probably would be able to make this work. Unfortunately, I think it's too much work for me to get the vertical GPU mount in this case. It would have looked cool. However, I think I'm going to abandon the idea, and I'm going to save the vertical GPU mount for my Corsair 800D, which has got a lot more room. It's already got a shelf covering the power supply, so it's ready to go. Plus there's 7 expansion slots, 7 or 8 expansion slots, I can't remember on it. The vertical GPU mount only takes up 4, so I'm only taking up half of my PCIe slots on that case itself with my Threadripper. So we're just going to go ahead and abandon the idea of using this bracket here in this case. Unfortunate, but it looks like it's going to have to be done. I don't necessarily feel like cutting and taking the time of cutting the shelf here. So we're just going to go ahead and take the vertical GPU mount out, which is disappointing. I really would have liked to use it, but it is what it is. Okay, so I have the PSU shelf back in. Once again, unfortunately, we won't be able to use the vertical GPU mount. So now I'm trying to figure out, and I've removed the fan here. I'm trying to figure out if I have enough space to include the RX Vega liquid cooler, radiator, and pump. So I can either go in here, or I can maybe go right here if I remove this hard drive shelf, which I don't necessarily want to do. I could make it work if I had to, but I would like to avoid that if possible. But I could put the radiator up in the front here and have an intake through the front instead of the back, but I would really like to use the back, so hopefully we have enough room. So I'm going to grab the liquid cooler heatsink block attached to the radiator from AlphaCool. Okay, so things are definitely not going my way. I just installed the liquid water cooler for the RX Vega. Now I originally thought I could get it up in the 120mm grate up there. Unfortunately, it collides with my liquid cooler that's up there, like right about there. So I can't install it. Now I tried installing the liquid cooler here with just one fan. However, the way AlphaCool is designed their liquid cooler is that you have to have both fans installed in order to mount it. So I'm kind of screwed. This is the only way I can install it, is on the front. And I have the RX Vega right now in its socket, its PCIe slot. And it doesn't look like it's going to work because I still have more cableage coming out of the actual water block itself. And I don't know where I'm going to put this cable loop. So unfortunately, that's another part that will not fit. The next thing to do, I guess we got left, is to liquid metal the CPU. And I'm hoping my luck doesn't go south with that too, using the Conductonaut. Because if my luck goes south with that as well, then I'm going to end up with a non-working computer, 100%, because the 4790K might die on me if I short something out. I'm kind of hesitant to liquid metal it, but we're going to give her a shot anyway. Alright, so there's my i7. We're just going to let that... It's not touching any pins, is it? No. Okay. So this is my delidded i7 4790K. It's actually moving around the IHS a lot, so there we go. Here's the delidded 4790K. So we're going to get to liquid metaling this. Hopefully, hopefully I don't screw things up. I think that's all we're gonna need. There's that small little drop there. CPU cooler on there now, thermal paste. I didn't put liquid metal underneath the CPU cooler because I just want to make sure everything boots. I may go for the liquid metal at some point if temperatures are still not to my liking, but I probably will keep it this way. Vega's back in, all the fans are back in, everything's ready to go. So I'm going to plug a mouse and keyboard in, and then I'm going to plug it into the TV that's over here. And we're going to cross our fingers, man. I don't know if this is going to work, but hopefully it will. We have a boot. It works. I'm also stress testing it in IDIS 64. Currently, the maximum temperatures, I think the maximum temperature I've seen is 57 degrees, which is pretty rock solid compared to, you know, hitting TJ Max. I used to hit TJ Max if I got probably about, say, 95 to 100% load on stock settings, so 4.4 gigahertz on the CPU. So this is still stock settings. This is still 4.4 gigahertz. I may try a bit of overclocking. 61 degrees, that's the highest I've seen it go, which isn't bad. That's not bad at all. And it's been running for almost 10 minutes now, so I'm extremely happy that we got a boot out of the computer here. I've boxed it all up here. I've put all the enclosures, the front panel, the side panel back on, just to kind of get a real world test of what it's going to be like in terms of airflow for the thing. But I'm really happy with the liquid metal so far. That was the scariest part by far. By far was doing the liquid metal in the computer. Like, this stuff is incredible. Like, this stuff is incredible. If you're willing to take the risk to delid your CPU and then put liquid metal on it, do it. This is great. Like, it's insane on how much it's dropped the temperature. This CPU actually was pretty much, I was about to throw it out because it would reset my computer all the time. It would hit TJ Max just idling on the desktop. I went out and bought a new cooler, hence the H100i Pro. That didn't work, so I delidded it, put some thermal paste, new TIM on the inside of the IHS. That kind of worked. It would still hit about 95 degrees Celsius under full load. And then I was like, well, we might as well give it a shot with liquid metal. Let's go for broke. And it worked. It worked like a treat. Look at that. That's so crazy. I'm really happy right now. I mean, besides the fact that I couldn't get the vertical GPU to work, unfortunately, or the liquid cooler for the Vega, but that's okay. That's okay. I'll take this. I'll take it. I'll take this as a win. Yet another win is that I'm now able to overclock the 4790K after liquid metaling it. Now, I took my computer to work. This is my computer that travels to and from work. I am head of marketing at my dealership that I work at, so I work in Photoshop and Premiere Pro all the time using this computer, and it's run really well at work. So at 4.4 gigahertz, I didn't have any crashes, thermal issues, blue screens of death, nothing. So I've decided to take the risk and overclock the 4790K to 4.7 gigahertz, running at 1.42 volts. And I've been running a stress test or stability test in IDA64 for almost an hour and 35 minutes on the 4790K. And it has not thermal throttled at all according to IDA64, which is great. Now, I also had real temp running in the background to log the minimum and maximum temperatures on the 4790K. So on Core 1, we had 79 degrees Celsius, Core 2, we had 84 degrees Celsius, and Core 3 is the highest out of all of them at 90 degrees Celsius, and Core 4 was 78 degrees Celsius. Now, Core number 3 is there's probably a hot spot on that CPU. There's a lot of factors that could go into that, which would be me maybe not relidding the CPU. I put the CPU in its socket, put the IHS on top of the liquid metal, and then use the mounting pressure of the CPU pump to relid the CPU in a sense. There also could be uneven mounting pressure on the water cooler itself, so I could maybe take a screwdriver and tighten the corners down more to see if I could maybe get a bit better contact with the CPU cooler and the IHS. I could also try putting liquid metal on the cold plate of the water pump and the IHS. I used just normal thermal paste from G-Lid on the outside of the IHS to make contact with the cold plate. So that's also an option. I didn't really want to take the risk. I also just wanted to make sure that the CPU would boot after liquid metaling the CPU die and the IHS underneath. So it's running really well. I'm very happy with that. I did have this running at 4.8 gigahertz at one point, but 4.7 gigahertz is fine with me. That's great. It also could be a factor of me maybe damaging the CPU ever so slightly for running it while it was hitting TJ Max so much. I don't know why I ran the CPU when it was hitting its TJ Max. I never really investigated. I just I'll just do it later. But that is probably definitely a symptom of being an idiot, basically. But I'm very happy with it. 4.7 gigahertz with the maximum temperature of 90 degrees. I might tweak the voltage a little bit, maybe try to drop it from 1.42 volts to maybe 1.41, maybe 1.4. If I'm lucky, I just need to see if it's stable, and that will definitely help out with the thermals on the 4790K. Alright guys, so that's been the very first episode of Build Log. I know it was a very long video. I'm going to work on making the video shorter for the next additions to Build Log. And this is just kind of a rough draft of what Build Log will be. I'm definitely going to make a few tweaks to the series, maybe add some more cinematic shots of the computers back there, maybe the parts, maybe get some more B-roll, maybe voice over things a little bit better. I'm currently only using the microphone attached to my camera, so it's not obviously the greatest audio in the world. But again, it's just the first part. we got a long way to go. We got some room for improvement for BuildLog. I want to thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you're still here, I want to thank Skillshare for sponsoring this video. Yeah, and this has been the first edition to BuildLog, as I said. It was very fun. I had a fun time doing this. It was very stressful, actually, because I couldn't get all the parts in there, which is unfortunate, but that's just how things go sometimes. Sometimes things just don't work out for you in the computer world, which unfortunately didn't this time. I got about 50% of the parts in there, so we're definitely going to be working on this computer in the future, in a future edition to BuildLog. So stay tuned for that. I want to thank you guys so much for watching again. My name's Ken, also known as Wiltshire, and I will see you guys in the next video. Take care, guys. Bye!